This is Carrie Beck with How to Homeschool My Child and Homeschool Superheroes. And today I want to talk to you about love of learning and give you one of my very favorite ways to encourage a love of learning, especially with boys. I don't know about you, but if you have boys, my son was very competitive, super competitive. And so I had to take that competitiveness and channel it into education. In fact, I just got off the phone with Hunter probably about 5 or 10 minutes ago. I was like, oh, I'm going to go do a little video on Facebook, and it's going to be about competitiveness and love of learning. And I guess I'm going to use you for an example. And he says, yeah, because I didn't like learning when I was a little kid. I said, well, that might be true. So, but we also talked about how he changed over time. And I talked about that yesterday and the importance of being patient with our kids. So we need to be patient and give them an opportunity. I know when things are going to change in me, it takes time. So when I want to change in my own children, that's going to take time as well. And so that would be one of the first things I'd say. But let's sort of dive into this strategy that you could use with boys with competition. And then when we're finished, I'm going to give you a few little things that are going on the rest of the day so you can be headed. So what is this strategy? The strategy is games. I'll just be real honest. We used games. We used all sorts of games. When I was a public school teacher, I played games in my room to encourage a love of learning. In fact, I made a giant Jeopardy board, and we had the amounts here and the topics here, and they were two teams, and they could come up and choose United States for $50 or whatever. And then they'd pull out a question, and we would ask, or I did questions, not answers like Jeopardy. But that would be one way that you could do it. I've done tic-tac-toe just in reviewing with my kids here at home. We've played hangman. There's all sorts of games that you can play. I'm going to show you a few prepared games that we use, and I will start with the first one. That is the Hunter story. I told you yesterday that I took Hunter we were going to the museums in Houston, and we pulled into the parking lot, and he said, oh no, not this museum. He was about 7 years old, and it was a fine arts museum. He thought we were going to the health museum and all the activities. Anyway, he went in there, and I was telling him the story just a few minutes ago on the phone, and I said, I told you, you listen to like 3 Monet audios, and then we'll go next door, same museum, to the Star Wars exhibit. And his response, he's 27, he goes, oh, I remember the Star Wars exhibit. So he may not have remembered much about Monet, but he did remember the Star Wars. What I want to show you is that when we were in Nashville one time, I bought this game at the Parthenon. It's called the Fine Arts Game. And Hunter was young. He was under 10 years old. And we played this in the van the whole way home from Nashville to Texas. And you know who probably won was Hunter. He knew every masterpiece, every person, every painter, every whatever, because he wanted to win. Did he care about fine arts? No, but he was so interested in winning that he would learn whatever it was. And that's why I say with boys, it's real important. You can use competition in a positive way. Here's another game that you could probably just buy at Target called Apples to Apples. Great vocabulary game, great word game. The whole family can play it, and I will tell you, our family loved this game, playing this game. But this is just a regular old game, but your kids are going to learn about words and vocabulary and things like that as well. Now, I'm going to show you some very specific games that I think are fun and that we actually play. This was one we played all the time. It's Quick Picks. This one's the animal game, but they also had like multiplication and some other math games. And I'll just show you real quickly. It's not your normal game. You would get something like this, but you had to put them in their categories of birds, crustaceans, amphibians, dinosaurs, whatever. So you had to learn what category these animals were in order to win. Another game we had was a scientist game. And the scientist, there's the rules here, and I can just show you. So here we have Copernicus. Anyway, there are games you can play it as a regular card game, or you can actually play the scientist game and learn about the different scientists there. This is Hive Alive. It's just a simple math game on whole numbers and fractions and things like that. That my kid, obviously, you can see it's all dented in. It's been played much. This is one I love because one thing I did with my kids, even when they were young, is every year we read a Shakespeare play aloud. We took turns because I thought, well, that's just a simple way to expose them. And if they were too young to read the words, I could play the parts. But as they got old enough to actually read a part out loud, then we took turns and we would read at least one Shakespeare play a year. Here's a game called The Play's the Thing. And there are several different ways that you can play it. I'm going to actually open this one up because I think it's sort of cool. And they can learn all about Shakespeare. You've got the Globe Theater here, and then you've got your board game as well. So it's sort of fun to play. I don't sell these. I used to sell these about 15 or 20 years ago, and they are all included in my games book that's listed in the description, so you can actually go and learn. Here's another one called Who's at Home, and it's all about animal habitat. Again, these are games that my son, I will say this, he would have loved this because he loved animals. But Shakespeare, I don't think so. But if I found a game that was on a topic that I felt important, then I would actually I would find a game and play it and they would learn. Now this one I think is really cool because it's an election year. So we have Hail to the Chief, and it's all about the government and about elections and that type of thing. So this would be a really cool game to play specifically this year. And you're going to learn a lot about history and geography. Now, I will say this was one that my kids just wanted to play. They didn't care about learning. They learned, and it's called Made for Trade. And it's all set in the colonial times, the early American life. And they love going around the board and using their shillings for this, that, or the other. But this will be another game set in American history. I have some more games upstairs. I didn't bring them all here. Constellation. I think we have one in a tower like the medieval ages in a castle type thing. There are a lot of games. So you can buy prepared games, but you can also just make some of your own games. Anytime you need to review some information for whatever you're studying, you can use a game. Just tic-tac-toe and one child against the other child or two teams against each other is a very simple game. Like I said, Hangman is another game. We would do, you could play some other games that are just regular old games. You could play the match game. I did lots of things where we would turn them all over and they had to match maybe a vocabulary word to the definition or an example or whatever. So there's lots of ways that you can use very simple games that you can play. You can even use, I should have brought them in here, Easter eggs, and use Easter eggs to match things up. Or for spelling, you can take Easter eggs and put all the letters on the Easter eggs, and then instead of having a spelling test, give them an egg carton and let them spell the words out with the Easter eggs. And it would be like a game as well. It would be a game with one. So I have lots of ideas in my games ebook that you can get. It's sitting over there on the description. That would be something that would do. If you have an idea about encouraging boys, especially, I don't know about you, but it was really tough. I had to really come up with things to inspire a love of learning in Hunter. And yet, here he is, 27 years old, and he actually really loves learning now. And so that's encouraging. Why do I say that? To encourage you to have patience. It is not going to change in a week. It's not going to change in a month. It may not even change in a year. Like my art story, the fine art story, 10 years later, Hunter was the only one that would go with me in London to the National Gallery of Art. The rest of my family stayed in the little townhouse we were renting, and Hunter and I tricked off to there, and we actually ran out of time because we were supposed to meet everyone up for lunch somewhere else, and so we didn't even get to finish it all. But that to me is a story that says persistence and patience and kindness, and not cramming it down their throat. They don't want you to just cram learning down their throat. So games are just a really fun way to do that. If you have a fun way to encourage love of learning, leave a comment here